Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, staring at the massive holographic display that showed the enemy fleet. Thousands of alien ships filled the space just outside Earth's solar system. Each one was larger than anything humanity had ever built. Their weapons could destroy cities with a single shot. Their shields could stop anything Earth's military could throw at them. "Admiral, incoming transmission from the Hegemony flagship," reported Lieutenant Torres from the communication station. Sarah nodded. She had been expecting this. For 3 days, the alien fleet had been waiting at the edge of their system. The entire galaxy knew what was coming next. It was always the same pattern. The Hegemony would arrive, make their demands, and within hours the target species would surrender. No one had ever successfully resisted them. "Put it through," Sarah ordered. The hologram flickered and changed. Now it showed the bridge of the alien flagship. Admiral Zethkar stood in the center, his tall, reptilian form imposing even through the transmission. His species, the Veltar, had been the first to join the Hegemony 3,000 years ago. They had learned that resistance was pointless. "Admiral Chen of the primitive human species," Zethkar's voice was cold and mechanical through the translator. "I am Admiral Zethkar of the Hegemony Coalition. We represent 12 advanced species and control most of this galaxy." Sarah kept her face calm. Around her, the bridge crew worked quietly at their stations. They all knew this moment would come eventually. Humanity had only been traveling between stars for 50 years. They had built colonies on a dozen worlds and established trade with a few friendly species, but they were nothing compared to the Hegemony. "We have observed your species for some time," Zethkar continued. "You show promise, but you lack guidance. The Hegemony offers you a choice. Surrender now and accept our rule. Your species will be allowed to exist under our protection. Your technology will be improved. Your people will be fed and housed according to Hegemony standards." The alien admiral paused, letting his words sink in. Sarah had heard recordings of similar speeches given to dozens of other species. The Hegemony always presented themselves as benevolent rulers. They claimed to bring peace and order to the galaxy. However, Zethkar's tone grew darker. "If you refuse our generous offer, we will be forced to demonstrate why resistance is futile. Your ships will be destroyed. Your colonies will be occupied. Your homeworld will be bombarded until you beg for mercy." Sarah looked around at her crew. They were good people. The best humanity had to offer. Many of them had families on Earth or the colonies. They deserved better than to become slaves to an alien empire. "You have 72 hours to decide," Zethkar announced. "We suggest you use this time wisely. Contact your leaders. Explain to them that the age of human independence is over. The Hegemony is patient, but our patience has limits." The transmission ended. The bridge fell silent except for the quiet hum of the ship's systems. Sarah stared at the tactical display showing the enemy fleet. Her own forces looked pitiful in comparison. 200 ships, most of them converted cargo vessels with hastily mounted weapons. The Hegemony had brought 3,000 warships, each one a masterpiece of alien engineering. "Orders, Admiral?" asked Commander Park, her second in command. Sarah turned to face her crew. These men and women had volunteered to stand between Earth and the most powerful military force in the galaxy. They knew they were probably going to die, but they were here anyway. "Send a reply to Admiral Zethkar," she said calmly. "Tell him we need more time to consider his generous offer. Ask for a week to consult with our government." Lieutenant Torres looked up from his station. "Admiral, they gave us 72 hours. "Heard him," Sarah replied. "Send the message anyway." As Torres worked to compose the reply, Sarah activated a secure channel on her personal communicator. The device looked like a standard military unit, but it contained technology that officially didn't exist. "Shadow Base. This is Admiral Chen. Authorization code Black 77 Alpha." The reply came immediately. "Shadow Base confirmed. We've been monitoring the situation, Admiral. All stations report ready. Initiate Phase 1 of the Shadow Protocol. Full communication blackout starting in 30 minutes. Understood. Phase 1 commencing. Good luck, Admiral." Sarah closed the channel and looked back at the tactical display. The hegemony fleet was holding position, confident in their overwhelming superiority. They had no idea what was really happening. Commander Park approached her. "Admiral, what's the Shadow Protocol?" Sarah smiled for the first time in days. "Something the hegemony isn't expecting, Commander. Something they've never encountered before." Across the solar system, hidden installations began powering up systems that had been dormant for decades. In the asteroid belt, massive structures disguised as mining operations started revealing their true purpose. On the dark side of the moon, enormous doors slid open to expose launch bays that shouldn't exist. The message was sent to Admiral Zethkar within the hour. His reply was predictably annoyed. "Admiral Chen, the hegemony does not negotiate with inferior species. We have given you more time than you deserve. Use it wisely." But Sarah wasn't planning to use the time for negotiation. All across the solar system, ships were moving. Not the obvious military vessels that the hegemony could see, but other craft. Ships that bent light around themselves, that moved through space without leaving any trace on sensors. On Earth, President Martinez called an emergency session of the World Council. The representatives gathered in the secure bunker deep beneath Geneva. They all knew what was happening above their heads. "Admiral Chen has activated the Shadow Protocol," the president announced. "As of this moment, humanity is at war with the hegemony coalition." Some of the representatives looked terrified. Others seemed resigned to their fate. But a few, those who knew the truth about what humanity had been building for the past 50 years, smiled grimly. The hegemony fleet continued to wait. Their sensors detected increased activity throughout the solar system, but it all seemed consistent, with a species preparing for surrender. Ships were moving, but they appeared to be evacuation vessels. Industrial facilities were working overtime, probably trying to build enough transport capacity for the human population. Admiral Zethkar was pleased with himself. Another species was about to join the hegemony. It was always satisfying when they surrendered without a fight. It saved resources and avoided unnecessary destruction. He had no way of knowing that those evacuation ships were actually carrying exotic matter to weapon systems that could tear holes in spacetime. The industrial facilities were manufacturing ammunition for guns that fired compressed black holes. The transport vessels were actually the most advanced stealth fighters ever built by any species in the galaxy. Sarah Chen stood on her bridge and watched the countdown timer. 68 hours remained until the hegemony's deadline, but the Shadow Protocol had its own timeline, and it was much shorter. "All stations report ready, Admiral," Commander Park announced. Sarah nodded. "Signal all Shadow units, begin Phase 2 in 12 hours, and Commander?" "Yes, Admiral? Send another message to Zethkar. Tell him we appreciate his patience and we'll have an answer for him soon." She didn't mention that the answer wouldn't be the one he was expecting. The hegemony had waited 3 days for Earth's surrender. Instead, they were about to discover that humanity had spent 50 years preparing for this moment. They were about to learn that sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one that refuses to give up. 3 more days passed and Admiral Zethkar was growing impatient. The human fleet remained in position, making no aggressive moves but also showing no signs of preparing to surrender. His tactical officers reported strange energy readings throughout the solar system, but nothing that seemed threatening. "Sir, the humans are moving more ships," reported his intelligence officer, a spider-like creature from the Nexar species. "Our sensors detect increased traffic between their colonies and their homeworld." Zethkar studied the tactical display. Human vessels were indeed moving in unusual patterns, but they looked like civilian transports and cargo ships. Probably evacuating their leadership, he decided. Standard procedure for species about to surrender. On the bridge of the UES Defiance, Admiral Chen was coordinating activities that the hegemony couldn't begin to understand. Her communications officer was in constant contact with installations that didn't officially exist. Ships that weren't on any registry were moving through space using technology that broke every known law of physics. "Shadowbase reports all construction units are now operational," Lieutenant Torres announced. "Cloaking fields are stable across all sectors." Sarah nodded. For 50 years, ever since humanity's first contact with alien technology, they had been preparing for this day. Not openly, the official policy was peaceful exploration and trade. But in secret, in hidden facilities scattered throughout the solar system, humanity's greatest minds had been working on a single project. The Shadow Protocol wasn't just a military plan. It was humanity's insurance policy against exactly this situation. Admiral, incoming transmission from Earth Command, Torres reported. The hologram flickered to life, showing President Martinez in the underground command center. Behind him, Sarah could see the world's military leaders and top scientists. Admiral, what's the status of the Shadow Fleet? The president asked. All units are operational and ready for deployment, Sarah replied. We have full stealth capability, across 2,000 vessels. The hegemony has no idea they exist. President Martinez nodded grimly. The World Council has voted. If we're going to do this, we're committed. No surrender, no retreat. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. 2,000 ships sounded impressive until you remembered that the hegemony had brought 3,000. But numbers weren't everything. The aliens were about to learn that lesson the hard way. Meanwhile, Admiral Zethkar was receiving his own reports. His science officer, a tall, blue-skinned humanoid from the Alteran Collective, approached his command chair. Admiral, we're detecting some unusual readings from the human industrial installations, energy signatures that don't match. They're known technology. Zethkar barely looked up from his tactical display, probably trying to upgrade their defensive systems. A waste of time, but let them try. It will make their surrender more satisfying. The science officer hesitated. Sir, these readings are different. We've never seen anything like them before. Every primitive species thinks they can innovate their way out of conquest, Zethkar replied dismissively. The humans discovered faster than light travel 50 years ago. They're still children playing with toys they don't understand. But the science officer was right to be concerned. Deep in the asteroid belt, massive facilities that had been disguised as mining operations for decades were now operating at full capacity. They weren't mining rocks. They were manufacturing something far more dangerous. The humans had learned something important during their first 50 years in space. Every alien species they encountered had focused on energy weapons and defensive shields, plasma cannons, laser arrays, particle beams, all variations on the same basic concept. Their defenses were designed to stop other energy weapons, but humans had taken a different approach. While other species were perfecting energy manipulation, humanity had been working on something the galaxy had never seen: weapons that manipulated space-time itself. Sarah walked through the corridors of the Defiance, heading to a section that wasn't on any official ship blueprints. The elevator descended far deeper than it should have, into levels that were shielded from all sensors. Here, in the heart of the ship, was humanity's greatest secret. The Shadow Core looked like nothing, more than a sphere of perfectly black material, about the size of a basketball. It sat in the center of a chamber filled with exotic machinery that hurt to look at directly. The air around it seemed to bend and twist in ways that made Sarah's eyes water. Status report, she asked the chief engineer, a woman named Dr. Kim, who had been working on the Shadow project since its beginning. All systems green, Admiral. The quantum tunnel drive is stable, stealth fields are at maximum efficiency, and the exotic matter containment is holding steady. Sarah nodded. The Shadow Core was what made everything possible. It was a miniature black hole, carefully contained and controlled, that allowed the ship to do impossible things: move through space without creating a disturbance, bend light around the hull to become invisible, phase in and out of normal spacetime. Every ship in the Shadow Fleet had one. 2,000 mobile black holes, each one controlled by technology that the hegemony couldn't even detect, let alone understand. How long until we're ready for full deployment? Sarah asked. 6 hours, Admiral. All ships report their Shadow Cores are synchronized and ready. Sarah smiled. The hegemony was about to get the surprise of their existence. Back on the alien flagship, Admiral Zethkar was growing more irritated by the hour. The humans should have surrendered by now. Every other species had folded within days of seeing the hegemony fleet. What made these primitives think they were special? Sir, we're receiving another transmission from the human admiral, his communications officer reported. Put it through, Zethkar ordered. Admiral Chen appeared on the holographic display, looking calm and confident. Too confident for someone whose species was about to be conquered. Admiral Zethkar, thank you for your continued patience. We've been discussing your offer with our leadership, and we need just a little more time to prepare. Our response. Zethkar's eyes narrowed. Admiral Chen, my patience is not unlimited. You have been given more than enough time to recognize the inevitable. Oh, we recognize it, Sarah replied with a slight smile. We just want to make sure our response is appropriate. The transmission ended, leaving Zethkar staring at the blank screen. Something about the human's tone bothered him. She didn't sound like someone preparing to surrender. She sounded like someone preparing for war. But that was impossible. The human fleet was laughably small and technologically primitive. They had no allies, no secret weapons, no hidden advantages. The hegemony's intelligence network was the best in the galaxy. If humanity had any surprises, they would know about them. What Zethkar didn't know was that humanity's greatest advantage was something the hegemony had never encountered: the ability to keep a secret for 50 years. While other species broadcast their achievements and competed for prestige, humans had learned to hide their most important work. The Shadow Fleet existed in a realm between dimensions, invisible to all sensors, powered by controlled singularities that shouldn't be possible to create. For 5 decades, the best human minds had worked in absolute secrecy, preparing for the day when Earth's independence would be threatened. That day had finally arrived. Sarah returned to the bridge as the countdown timer reached 0. Phase 2 of the Shadow Protocol was beginning. All across the solar system, ships that had never appeared on any scanner were powering up their weapons and preparing to reveal themselves. All Shadow units report ready, Admiral, Commander Park announced. Sarah took her position in the command chair. Signal the fleet. In 12 hours, we show the hegemony what happens when they threaten humanity. The waiting was almost over. Admiral Zethkar paced the bridge of his flagship, his clawed feet clicking against the metal floor. The humans had been stalling for 6 days now, and his superiors were beginning to ask questions. The Hegemony Council expected quick, efficient conquests. Delays made them look weak. Sir, long-range sensors are detecting more unusual energy spikes, his science officer reported. The patterns are getting stronger. Zethkar stopped pacing and studied the display. The energy readings were indeed strange, but they were scattered throughout the solar system. If the humans were trying to build some kind of weapon, they were doing it in the most inefficient way possible. Probably desperate attempts to upgrade their defensive systems, he decided. Let them waste their time. When we attack, their improvised weapons won't help them. What Zethkar couldn't see was the real source of those energy spikes. Hidden in the asteroid belt, disguised as mining equipment, massive shipyards were completing the final stages of humanity's greatest secret. For 50 years, these facilities had been building the Shadow Fleet, one ship at a time. The ships themselves were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. They were smaller than traditional warships, but that was by design. Each vessel was built around a shadow core, a contained black hole that allowed it to manipulate space-time in ways that broke every known law of physics. Admiral Chen stood in the main construction bay of Shadow Base 1, watching the final ship roll off the production line. The vessel was sleek and dark, its hull made from materials that absorbed all electromagnetic radiation. When it was powered down, it was completely invisible to sensors. When it activated its shadow core, it could phase in and out of normal space. That's the last one, Admiral, reported Dr. Kim, the chief engineer. 2,000 ships all equipped, with full stealth capability and exotic matter weapons. Sarah nodded. And they still have no idea we exist. The Shadow Fleet represented humanity's greatest achievement and biggest gamble. For 5 decades, the world's governments had poured resources into the project, all while maintaining the appearance of being a peaceful, primitive species. They had reverse-engineered alien technology, improved upon it, and developed entirely new branches of physics. The key breakthrough had come 20 years ago, when human scientists discovered how to create stable micro-black holes. Other species, had tried this before, but they always approached it as an energy source. Humans realized the real potential was in space-time manipulation. Dr. Kim, are all ships ready for combat deployment? Sarah asked. Yes, Admiral. Every shadow core is synchronized and stable. Our weapon systems are fully charged, and stealth fields are operating at maximum efficiency. Sarah activated her communicator. All shadow units. This is Admiral Chen. Prepare for final phase activation. Target coordinates are being transmitted now. Across the solar system, 2,000 invisible ships received their orders. They had been hiding in asteroid fields, behind planets, and in the empty spaces between orbits. Now they began moving toward the hegemony fleet, their shadow cores bending space around them to remain undetectable. On the alien flagship, Admiral Zethkar was receiving a very different report. Sir, we're detecting massive power fluctuations throughout the human solar system, his tactical officer announced. Whatever they're doing, it's big. Zethkar studied the readings with growing concern. The energy signatures were unlike anything in the hegemony database. They didn't match any known weapon system or defensive technology. Analysis? He demanded. His science officer worked frantically at her console. Unknown, sir. The energy patterns are impossible. They suggest space-time distortions on a massive scale, but no known technology can produce these effects. For the first time since arriving at Earth, Zethkar felt a touch of uncertainty. The hegemony had conquered hundreds of species over the millennia. They had seen every possible form of resistance, every desperate last-minute weapon. But this was different. Send a transmission to the human admiral, he ordered. I want to know what they're doing. The holographic display flickered to life, showing Admiral Chen on the bridge of her primitive warship. But something had changed. She no longer looked like a defeated commander preparing to surrender. She looked confident, almost excited. Admiral Zethkar, she said with a slight smile. Perfect timing. We were just about to send you a message. What are you doing, human? Zethkar demanded. Our sensors are detecting massive energy buildups throughout your system. Oh, that, Sarah replied casually. We're getting ready to give you our answer to your surrender demand. Zethkar's eyes narrowed. Your answer? Yes. Our answer is no. Before Zethkar could respond, something impossible happened. The space around his fleet began to shimmer and distort. Massive shapes began materializing out of nowhere, as if reality itself was being torn open. The shadow fleet decloaked. 2,000 ships appeared simultaneously, surrounding the hegemony fleet in a perfect sphere. They moved with impossible grace, their hulls seeming to bend light around them. They were smaller than the alien warships, but there was something about them that made Zethkar's blood run cold. Impossible, his science officer whispered. Our sensors show nothing. They don't exist. But they clearly did exist. The tactical display was showing 2,000 contact signatures that hadn't been there moments before. Ships that had somehow hidden from the most advanced sensor technology in the galaxy. Sir, incoming transmission from the human fleet, the communications officer reported, his voice shaking. Admiral Chen's image reappeared, but now she was surrounded by holographic displays showing the positions of every ship in both fleets. Admiral Zethkar, allow me to introduce you to humanity's shadow fleet. I believe this is what you call first contact. Zethkar stared at the tactical display in disbelief. His 3,000 ships were completely surrounded by an enemy fleet that shouldn't exist. But the numbers weren't what terrified him. It was the technology. How? He managed to ask. 50 years of preparation, Sarah replied. 50 years of building, planning, and waiting for someone like you to threaten our home. Did you really think we spent all that time just trading and exploring? We were learning. We were preparing. The hegemony sensors were going crazy, trying to analyze the human ships. The readings made no sense. The vessels seemed to exist partially, outside normal space-time. Their hulls were made from materials that shouldn't be possible. Their power sources generated energy signatures that broke every known law of physics. Sir, those aren't normal ships, the science officer reported. Her voice filled with awe and terror. They're using technology we don't understand. Controlled singularities, space-time manipulation, exotic matter weapons. This is beyond anything in our database. Zethkar felt the first real fear he had experienced in centuries of military service. The hegemony had always won because they had superior technology and numbers, but now they faced an enemy whose technology was completely alien to them. "Admiral Chen," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "This doesn't have to end in bloodshed. The hegemony is always willing to negotiate with equals." Sarah's smile grew wider. "Equals? A few minutes ago, you called us primitive. You threatened to bombard our homeworld until we begged for mercy. Now you want to negotiate?" "The situation has changed," Zethkar admitted. "Yes, it has. You see, Admiral, humans have a saying. Speak softly and carry a big stick. For 50 years we've been speaking very softly. We've been the friendly neighbors, the eager students, the peaceful traders, but we've also been building the biggest stick the galaxy has ever seen. Around the hegemony fleet, the Shadow Fleet held its positions. The alien ships were powerful, but they were designed to fight enemies they could understand. Energy weapons, physical projectiles, electromagnetic shields. They had no defense against weapons that could manipulate the fundamental forces of reality. "What do you want?" Zethkar asked. "That's simple," Sarah replied. "We want you to leave. Pack up your fleet, go home, and never threaten Earth or any human colony again. In return, we won't demonstrate what our weapons can actually do." Zethkar looked at his tactical officers. They were all staring at their displays in confusion and fear. The human ships were doing things that should be impossible, moving through space without generating any detectable energy signatures, phasing in and out of normal reality, creating gravitational fields strong enough to bend light. For the first time in hegemony history, they were facing an enemy whose technology they couldn't understand or counter. The humans hadn't just built a bigger fleet. They had developed an entirely new form of warfare. "I need to consult with my superiors," Zethkar said finally. "Of course," Sarah replied. "Take your time. We'll wait right here. All 2,000 of us." The transmission ended, leaving Zethkar alone with his thoughts and his fear. The hegemony had come to conquer a primitive species. Instead, they had discovered that humanity was far from primitive. They were something new, something dangerous, something that could challenge the established order of the galaxy. The waiting game had just become much more complicated. The hegemony fleet hung in space, completely surrounded by ships that defied everything they thought they knew about physics. Admiral Zethkar had been in emergency communication with the Hegemony Council for 6 hours, and the debate was fierce. "They're bluffing," insisted War Commander Thexmira of the Krylon Empire. "No primitive species could develop technology superior to ours. Destroy them now before they realize we've seen through their deception." But Supreme Analyst Velkorin of the Nexar Collective disagreed. "Our sensors cannot explain what we're seeing. These ships exist in a state that should be impossible. If they're bluffing, it's with technology we don't understand." Admiral Zethkar watched the human fleet through his view screen. The Shadow Fleet maintained perfect formation around them, each ship positioned with mathematical precision. They weren't moving, weren't charging weapons, weren't doing anything threatening. They were simply there, waiting. "Admiral Chen," he transmitted, "the Hegemony Council requires a demonstration of your capabilities before any decisions can be made." Sarah's response was immediate. "Of course, I was hoping you'd ask. Shadow Fleet, select target Hegemony 7749. Disable only. I repeat, disable only." Zethkar quickly checked his tactical display. Hegemony 7749 was one of his heavy cruisers, positioned on the outer edge of his formation. It was one of their most advanced warships, protected by shields that could stop planet-killing weapons. What happened next changed everything. One of the human ships simply disappeared, not moved quickly or activated stealth systems. It vanished from reality completely. A moment later, it reappeared inside the cruiser's shield perimeter, occupying the same space where the alien ship's weapon systems were located. The impossible happened. Instead of a collision that should have destroyed both vessels, the human ship seemed to exist in the same space as part of the cruiser. Zethkar watched in horrified fascination as the Shadow Fleet vessel extended something that looked like tentacles of pure darkness into the alien ship. "Sir, we're receiving a distress signal from Hegemony 7749, his communications officer reported. Their entire weapon array just stopped working. All systems are shutting down one by one." The human ship phased back out of the cruiser and returned to its position in the Shadow Fleet formation. The disabled alien vessel was still intact, still alive but completely helpless. Its weapons were dead, its engines were offline, and its shields had collapsed. "How?" Zethkar whispered. Admiral Chen's voice came through the communication system. "Our ships can phase in and out of normal space-time. When we phase into a solid object, we can selectively interact with its internal systems. We can disable your weapons without harming your crew. We can shut down your engines without breaching your hull. We can do this to every ship in your fleet, simultaneously." The implications were staggering. The Hegemony's entire military doctrine was based on superior firepower and defensive systems. But what good were weapons and shields against an enemy that could simply phase through them? "This is impossible," Zethkar's science officer reported. "They're manipulating space-time on a level we didn't think was achievable. They're not just bending physics, they're rewriting it." Sarah's voice continued. 50 years ago, when humanity first encountered alien technology, we realized something important. Every species in the galaxy has developed along similar paths. Energy weapons, electromagnetic shields, faster-than-light travel based on space folding. You all think the same way. Zethkar was beginning to understand. But humans think differently. Exactly. While you perfected energy manipulation, we focused on space-time manipulation. While you built bigger guns, we learned to phase through reality itself. While you created stronger shields, we developed weapons that ignore shields entirely. The disabled cruiser was a sobering demonstration. The Shadow Fleet had neutralized one of the Hegemony's most powerful warships without firing a shot. They had simply reached inside it and turned off its systems like flipping a light switch. "Admiral," Zethkar said carefully, "what assurance do I have that you won't use this technology for conquest?" Sarah's image appeared on his view screen again. "Because that's not who we are, Admiral. Humans have a concept called defensive warfare. We don't conquer others, but we won't be conquered either. Your fleet came here to force us into submission. Our response is to show you that submission is not an option." Zethkar looked at his tactical display. 3,000 of the galaxy's most advanced warships, rendered helpless by technology they couldn't comprehend. For the first time in Hegemony history, they were outmatched. "Sir, incoming priority transmission from the Council," his communications officer announced. The hologram showed the emergency session of the Hegemony Council. 12 species, the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy, all arguing at once. War Commander Thexamira was demanding immediate attack. Supreme Analyst Velkorin was advocating for retreat. Others were suggesting negotiation, alliance, or even surrender. Admiral Zethkar, spoke Chancellor Mordun of the Alteran Collective, the Council's current leader. "What is your assessment of the human military capability?" Zethkar chose his words carefully. "The humans have developed technology that makes our weapons and defenses irrelevant. They can disable our ships at will without destroying them. If they chose to destroy us, I believe they could do so without significant losses." The council chamber fell silent. For 3,000 years, the Hegemony had been the dominant force in the galaxy. They had never encountered a species that could challenge them technologically. However, Zethkar continued, they appear to have no interest in conquest. They simply want us to leave them alone. "Unacceptable," War Commander Thexamira declared. "No species can be allowed to possess technology superior to the Hegemony. We must capture their secrets or destroy them completely." "With respect, War Commander," Zethkar replied, "I don't believe we can do either. Their technology is beyond our understanding, and they have enough ships to match our entire fleet." Supreme Analyst Velkorin accessed her data files. "Admiral, Our intelligence reports suggested humanity had only 200 primitive warships. Where did 2,000 advanced vessels come from? They've been building them in secret for 50 years, Zethkar explained. While we thought they were a peaceful species focused on trade and exploration, they were actually preparing for war. We completely underestimated them. Chancellor Mordoon made a decision. Admiral, you are authorized to begin withdrawal negotiations with the humans. The hegemony cannot afford a war we cannot win. But War Commander Thex Mira was not finished. This is cowardice. The hegemony does not retreat from primitives. These are not primitives, Zethkar said firmly. They are possibly the most advanced military force in the galaxy, and they're offering us a chance to leave with honor intact. The debate continued, but Zethkar had heard enough. He closed the channel and opened a direct communication with Admiral Chen. Admiral, I believe we can reach an understanding, but I need you to know that not all members of the Hegemony Council agree with peaceful resolution. Sarah nodded. We're prepared for that possibility, Admiral, but we'd prefer to solve this without violence. Humans have a saying, it's better to be feared than loved, but it's best to be respected. You have my respect, Zethkar admitted. And my fear. Your technology could reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. That's not our goal, Sarah replied. We just want to live in peace. But we've learned that sometimes peace requires strength. The Shadow Fleet is our strength. Zethkar looked at the disabled cruiser floating helplessly in space. Its crew was alive and unharmed, but their ship was completely neutralized. The humans had demonstrated ultimate power with ultimate restraint. What are your terms for our withdrawal? He asked. Sarah smiled. Simple. Leave our space, don't come back, and don't threaten any human colonies. In return, we'll pretend this never happened. No one needs to know that the mighty hegemony was outmatched by a species you thought was primitive. It was a generous offer. The humans could have demanded tribute, territory, or technology transfers. Instead, they were offering the hegemony a face-saving withdrawal. But Zethkar knew that War Commander Thex Mira and her faction would never accept such terms. The hardliners would prefer to fight and die rather than admit defeat to a primitive species. The real test was about to begin. The emergency session of the Hegemony Council had been going on for 12 hours. Admiral Zethkar watched the holographic display as 12 species argued about humanity's ultimatum. Half wanted to negotiate, half wanted to fight, and none of them could agree on anything. War Commander Thex Mira slammed her clawed hand on the council table. We cannot show weakness. If we retreat from these primitives, every conquered species will think they can challenge us. Supreme Analyst Velcorin displayed her data files. War Commander, the humans are not primitives. Their technology is more advanced than ours. Fighting them would be suicide. Then we die with honor, Thex Mira roared. The Krylon Empire has never retreated from battle. Chancellor Morden of the Altaran Collective tried to maintain order. The question is not about honor, it's about survival. If these humans can disable our ships at will, what hope do we have in combat? Admiral Zethkar had been silent through most of the debate, but now he spoke up. I've been studying the human fleet for hours. Their technology doesn't just surpass ours, it makes ours obsolete. They can phase through our shields, disable our weapons without destroying us, and appear anywhere they want instantly. He paused, looking at each council member. But more importantly, they're showing restraint. They could have destroyed my entire fleet by now, but they haven't. They want us to leave peacefully. War Commander Thex Mira's eyes blazed with fury. Admiral Zethkar, you sound like a coward. Are you afraid of these hairless apes? Yes, Zethkar replied honestly. I'm afraid of them. And you should be too. Fear of a superior enemy is wisdom, not cowardice. The council continued to argue, but Zethkar could see that public opinion was shifting. News of the confrontation was spreading throughout hegemony space. Other conquered species were watching to see if the mighty hegemony could be defeated. Meanwhile, Admiral Chen was dealing with her own challenges. Earth's leadership was nervous about the long-term implications of revealing the Shadow Fleet. "Admiral, what happens after this?" President Martinez asked during their secure communication. "We've shown our hand. The entire galaxy will know that humans have advanced military technology." Sarah considered the question carefully. "Mr. President, we've been hiding our capabilities for 50 years. But hiding only works if no one threatens us. The hegemony forced us to reveal ourselves. And now? Now we face the consequences. Some species will fear us, some will try to ally with us, and some will try to steal our technology. We'll need to be ready for all of those possibilities." Dr. Kim, the chief engineer, joined the conversation. "Admiral, we could share some of our less sensitive technology with friendly species, help them defend themselves against hegemony expansion." Sarah nodded. "That's a good idea, Doctor. If we're going to change the balance of power in the galaxy, we should make sure it changes in the right direction." Back on the hegemony flagship, Admiral Zethkar received an urgent message from one of his subordinates. "Sir, we're detecting movement in the Krylon battle group. War Commander Thex Mira has broken formation and is approaching the human fleet." Zethkar cursed under his breath. The Krylon were always the most aggressive members of the hegemony. Thex Mira had obviously decided to test the humans' resolve. "Open a channel to the Krylon flagship," he ordered. Thex Mira's reptilian face appeared on the hologram. "Admiral Zethkar, I am done waiting. The Krylon Empire will show these primitives the price of defying the hegemony. War Commander, you're making a mistake. The humans have superior technology. Don't throw away your ships and crews for pride." "Pride is all we have left," Thex Mira replied. "If we cannot conquer them, we can at least show them that the hegemony fights to the end." The transmission cut off, and Zethkar watched helplessly as 200 Krylon warships broke formation and charged toward the human fleet. On the bridge of the UES Defiance, Admiral Chen received the tactical update. "Admiral, 200 alien ships have broken formation and are moving to attack," reported Commander Park. Sarah sighed. She had hoped to resolve this peacefully, but some people only understood force. "Shadow Fleet, intercept the Krylon attack. Force, disable their ships but avoid casualties if possible." What followed was not a battle. It was a demonstration of absolute technological superiority. The Shadow Fleet ships phased through space, appearing inside the Krylon formation without warning. They moved through the alien ships like ghosts, reaching into their hulls to disable weapons, engines, and life support systems. Within minutes, 200 of the galaxy's most feared warships were floating dead in space. Their crews were alive, but powerless, their vessels reduced to metal coffins. War Commander Thex Mira's flagship was the last to be disabled. A single Shadow Fleet vessel phased directly into her bridge, its dark hull occupying the same space as her command chair. Tendrils of pure darkness reached out and touched every control panel, every weapon system, every piece of technology on the ship. "Impossible," she whispered as her ship died around her. The Shadow Fleet vessel's commander appeared as a hologram. "War Commander, your ships are disabled, but your crews are safe. This is your only warning. Any further aggressive action will be met with lethal force." Admiral Chen opened a communication channel to all hegemony forces. "This is Admiral Chen of the Terran Defense Force. We have demonstrated that we can disable your ships without harming your people. But our restraint has limits. Any further attacks will be answered with the complete destruction of the attacking force." The message was broadcast throughout the hegemony fleet and transmitted back to the council chambers. The reality of humanity's military superiority was now undeniable. Chancellor Morden called for an immediate vote. All in favor of accepting the human terms and withdrawing from their space? 8 species voted for withdrawal. 3 voted to continue fighting. The Krylon Empire predictably abstained since their representative was now trapped on a disabled ship. "The motion passes," Morden announced. "Admiral Zethkar, you are ordered to begin immediate withdrawal from human space." Zethkar felt a mixture of relief and shame. Relief that his people would survive. Shame that the mighty hegemony had been defeated without firing a shot. "Admiral Chen," he transmitted, The hegemony accepts your terms. We will withdraw immediately. Sarah appeared on his view screen one final time. Thank you, Admiral. I hope this is the beginning of a new relationship between our peoples, one based on mutual respect rather than conquest. You have taught us something important today, Zethkar replied. Perhaps it is time for the hegemony to reconsider our methods. The withdrawal took 3 days. The massive alien fleet, with their disabled ships in tow, departed Earth's solar system and disappeared into hyperspace. They left behind a changed galaxy. News of the confrontation spread quickly. Dozens of conquered species began to whisper about resistance. The hegemony's reputation for invincibility was shattered. Some member species began to question their loyalty to an alliance that could be defeated by a single planet. Admiral Chen stood on the observation deck of the Defiance, watching the last hegemony ships disappear into the distance. The Shadow Fleet had returned to its hiding places, invisible once again but ready to deploy at a moment's notice. What happens now, Admiral? Commander Park asked. Sarah smiled. Now we get back to being the friendly neighbors. But if anyone else decides to threaten Earth or human colonies, they'll discover that the Shadow Fleet is always watching. President Martinez's voice came through the communication system. Admiral, we're receiving contact requests from dozens of species. Some want to establish diplomatic relations. Others want to join a defensive alliance against hegemony expansion. That's good, Sarah replied. The galaxy needs to know that there are alternatives to conquest and submission. Dr. Kim joined them on the observation deck. Admiral, what should we do about our technology? Other species will try to develop their own shadow fleets. Sarah considered the question. We'll share defensive technology with species that prove they'll use it responsibly. But the Shadow Core technology stays with humanity. That's our insurance policy. The Shadow Fleet had changed everything. For the first time in galactic history, a species had successfully resisted hegemony conquest. The age of unopposed alien expansion was over. Humanity had spoken softly for 50 years, building their strength in secret. When the time came to use that strength, they had done so with precision and restraint. They had won without seeking conquest, defended without becoming oppressors. The galaxy would never be the same again, and somewhere in the darkness between stars, 2,000 Shadow Fleet vessels waited patiently, ready to remind anyone who might forget that Earth's surrender was never an option. The hegemony had waited for humanity to bow. Instead, they had learned that some species refused to kneel. The vast emptiness of space stretched out around the 5 human ships as they moved deeper into unknown territory. The ships were small compared to the giant vessels they were about to meet. Their metal hulls reflected the distant stars as they traveled in perfect formation. Captain Olivia Martinez stood on the bridge of the USS Horizon, her eyes fixed on the main screen. She was in her 40s, with short brown hair and a face that showed both kindness and strength. She had led many missions before, but this one was different. This was humanity's first contact with the Galactic Confederation. Captain, we're picking up signals ahead, said Lisa Chen from her communication station. Her fingers moved quickly across the glowing panel. They're hailing us. Martinez nodded and straightened her blue uniform. This is it, everyone. First impression matters. Let's show them that humans know how to be good neighbors. The screen flickered and changed to show an alien face. The creature had purple skin with small ridges along its forehead and large, yellow eyes that blinked sideways. I am Commander Zix Valor of the Arcturus species, the alien said in a surprisingly clear voice. You have entered Confederation space. Identify yourselves. Martinez stepped forward. I am Captain Olivia Martinez of the USS Horizon, representing Earth and the United Human Alliance. We come in peace and friendship, hoping to establish diplomatic relations with your people. The alien's eyes narrowed as they looked past Martinez at the bridge of the human ship. The corners of its mouth twisted slightly. Earth? We have no record of this world or your species. Commander Zix Valor's voice carried a tone of boredom. Your vessels appear quite basic. How did you manage interstellar travel with such primitive technology? Jason Miller, the tactical officer, glanced at Martinez. He was a tall man with dark skin and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "They're scanning our ships, Captain," he whispered, "and they're not being subtle about it." Martinez kept her smile in place. "We've been traveling the stars for only 50 years, Commander. We're eager to learn from more advanced civilizations like yours." The alien made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Indeed. Well, we welcome all new species to the Confederation. Please follow our escort ships to our nearby outpost. We can begin diplomatic discussions there." The screen showed a wider view, revealing two massive alien ships approaching. Each one was at least 20 times larger than the horizon. Their sleek, curved designs made the human ships look like children's toys in comparison. "Those are warships," Miller said quietly. "Heavily armed." "Thank you for your welcome," Martinez replied to the alien commander. "We'll follow your lead." The screen went dark. Martinez turned to her crew. "Thoughts?" "They're not impressed," Miller said, crossing his arms. "That might work to our advantage." Frank Dawson spoke up from the engineering station. He was older than most of the crew, with gray hair and hands that showed years of practical work. "Captain, something's odd about their scan patterns. They're looking at our hull and weapons, but they're missing key systems. They think we're primitive," Dr. Catherine Powell added. The ship's xenobiologist was a woman with red hair tied back in a practical ponytail. "I've studied enough species to recognize contempt when I see it." Martinez nodded slowly. "Keep all systems in passive mode. Let them think what they want for now." She pressed a button on her chair. "All ships, this is Captain Martinez. Follow the alien vessels but maintain distance protocol. And remember the mission." The 5 human ships adjusted their course, following the much larger alien vessels toward a distant space station. The station grew larger on their screens, a massive structure with spinning rings and glowing lights, easily 10 times the size of the largest human space station. "Impressive," said Daniel Garcia from the navigation console. The young lieutenant whistled softly. "Must be home to thousands." Samuel Wright, the security chief, wasn't admiring the view. His muscular frame tensed as he studied the station. "I count at least 30 weapon emplacements on the outer ring alone. They're powering up targeting systems." "Standard procedure," Martinez said calmly. "When unknown ships approach, we do the same." "Not with that level of firepower," Wright muttered. The ships docked at one of the station's many arms. Martinez selected a small team to join her for the initial meeting: Miller, Powell, and Chen. They walked through the connecting tube to the station where a group of aliens waited. There were 5 different species present, each more strange than the last. Commander Zix Valor stood in front, his purple skin shining under the bright lights. "Welcome to Outpost Gamma 9, he said. "We rarely receive visitors from uncharted regions." Martinez extended her hand, then remembered the briefing on alien customs and quickly pulled it back. "Thank you for your hospitality. We're honored to be the first humans to meet the Confederation." A tall, thin alien with 4 arms leaned down to whisper something to Commander Zix Valor. They both made the same strange laughing sound. "Please follow us to the diplomatic chamber," Zix Valor said. "Your modest fleet can remain docked. I'm sure your crew will be comfortable in their little ships." As they walked through the station's corridors, Miller stayed close to Martinez. "They're showing off," he whispered. "Every section we pass through has either advanced technology or military capability on display." Powell nodded slightly. "Classic intimidation behavior." The diplomatic chamber was a large room with a round table in the center. Views of space filled the walls, and Martinez realized they were actual windows, not screens. The resources needed to create such large transparent sections in a space station were enormous. As they sat down, one of the aliens, a stocky creature with rocky skin, spoke in a grinding voice. "How many ships does your Earth possess? Surely not many if these 5 represent a diplomatic mission." "We brought what was necessary for peaceful contact," Martinez answered smoothly. Commander Zix Valar's yellow eyes seemed to glow. "Of course. The Confederation consists of 57 species across 200 worlds. Our combined fleet numbers in the thousands. Impressive, Martinez said. We look forward to learning about your cultures and technologies. Yes, the commander replied, and we are very interested in studying yours, primitive though it may be. Perhaps we could arrange a tour of your vessel? Chen caught Martinez's eye with a subtle look of warning. We would be happy to exchange tours, Martinez said. Both of our ships and this magnificent station. Excellent, Commander Zixvaler said. We shall begin immediately. I'm sure it won't take long to see everything your small fleet has to offer. As they stood to leave, Miller whispered to Martinez, They've already decided we're not a threat. Martinez nodded slightly. Good, she whispered back. That was the plan. The grand hall of the Confederation outpost glittered with strange lights and exotic decorations. Captain Martinez and her small team stood among dozens of alien species. Many of the aliens were much taller than humans, with some reaching nearly 10 feet in height. Dr. Catherine Powell watched closely as different alien representatives studied the humans with poorly hidden amusement. She had spent years learning to read alien body language, and right now every species in the room was showing signs of dismissal. Notice how they keep us in the center? She whispered to Martinez. We're being displayed like curiosities. Martinez nodded slightly. Let them look. A group of tall blue aliens with 4 arms approached. One of them held up a scanner and pointed it at Powell's uniform badge. Such simple communication devices, the alien said in a high-pitched voice. Do they even work beyond short range? Powell smiled politely. They serve our needs. Of course they do, the alien replied with a sound, like bells tinkling. Just as a child's drawing serves its need for expression. Across the room, Security Chief Samuel Wright was having a similar experience. A reptilian alien with scales that shifted colors was examining Wright's sidearm. Is this truly a weapon? The alien asked, blinking vertical eyelids. It seems more like a tool for making noise. Wright kept his face neutral. It's standard issue. Fascinating, the reptilian said. Our youngest hatchlings play with more advanced devices. Commander Zixvaler approached Martinez with a tall, thin alien whose skin seemed to flow like water. Captain, this is High Minister Elon Thar of the Aquarian Collective, Zixvaler said. The minister oversees the integration of new species into our confederation. The Aquarian's liquid-like face formed into what might have been a smile. So these are humans, smaller than I expected. Martinez extended her hand, then caught herself again. We come in peace and friendship, Minister. Yes, yes, all new species. Say the same. Elon Thar waved a flowing limb dismissively. Tell me, how many worlds has your kind settled? 1? 2, perhaps? We have colonies on Mars and Europa in our home system, and outposts in 2 nearby systems, Martinez answered. The alien made a bubbling sound. Charming. The Arcturus alone controls 73 systems. The Confederation as a whole spans nearly a quarter of the galaxy. Impressive, Martinez said. We hope to learn from your experience. Indeed you shall, Commander Zixvaler cut in. In fact, we've already prepared a proposal for Earth to become a protected territory under Confederation guidance. Martinez raised an eyebrow. Protected territory? We haven't even discussed formal relations yet. The minister's liquid face rippled. It's our standard approach with developing species. We provide technology, defense, and guidance in exchange for certain resource rights and access to your unique biological diversity. I see, Martinez said carefully. That's certainly something we would need to discuss with our government. Of course, Zixvaler said. Now, I believe we arranged for a tour of your vessel? Martinez nodded. Lieutenant Miller will escort you. As Miller led Zixvaler and several other aliens toward the docking bay, Communications Officer Lisa Chen approached Martinez with a concerned look. Captain, I need to speak with you privately, she said quietly. They moved to a corner of the hall. Chen's voice was barely above a whisper. I've been monitoring their internal communications with my portable translator. They're discussing Earth as a resource-rich acquisition, and debating how quickly they can establish a guidance council to oversee our planet. Martinez frowned. Are you certain? Positive, Chen replied. They also mentioned studying our crude but interesting propulsion technology. They seem particularly interested in something they called our unusual energy signatures. Keep listening, Martinez instructed, and tell Wright to stay alert during the tour. Back on the USS Horizon, Lieutenant Miller was showing Commander Zix-Valor and 3 other aliens through the ship's main corridors. He deliberately took them through the older, more basic sections of the ship. This is our main propulsion control, Miller explained, showing them a room with simple-looking control panels and displays. Zix-Valor touched one of the screens with obvious contempt. How do you manage interstellar travel with such basic systems? We're still learning, Miller said humbly. One of the other aliens, a tall insectoid creature, chittered something to Zix-Valor in their own language. Miller pretended not to notice the translator device hidden in his uniform badge, picking up every word. Yes, their containment field technology is surprisingly inefficient, Zix-Valor replied to the insectoid, but their asteroid mining methods might be useful in depleted systems. The tour continued to the crew quarters and mess hall. As they walked, one of the aliens, a short, stocky being with rocky skin, fell behind the group. Security Chief Wright, who had been following at a distance, watched as the alien placed a small device on a wall junction before hurrying to catch up. Wright tapped his badge twice, the signal for a security concern. He then carefully removed the device with a specialized tool and placed it in a containment pouch. When the tour reached the bridge, Chief Engineer Frank Dawson was waiting. The older man's face gave nothing away as the aliens examined the control stations with obvious amusement. And this is your main computer interface? Zix-Valor asked, pointing to Dawson's engineering station. Yes, Commander, Dawson replied. Not much compared to your systems, I'm sure. Indeed, the alien said with that same laughing sound. Our maintenance drones have more processing power. As the aliens continued their inspection, Wright entered the bridge and discreetly handed the small device to Dawson. The engineer examined it briefly before sliding it into a scanner hidden under his station. When the tour ended and the aliens had left the ship, Martinez called her senior staff to the conference room. Report, she said simply. Wright spoke first. They planted surveillance devices throughout the ship. We've found and contained 12 so far. The device is interesting, Dawson added. Advanced, but not as advanced as they want us to believe. It's designed to monitor power fluctuations more than communications, Chen nodded. That matches what I've been hearing. They're very interested in our power systems for some reason. Dr. Powell? Martinez turned to the xenobiologist. They're following a standard colonial approach, Powell said. First, convince us they're vastly superior. Second, offer protection we don't need. Third, establish a presence on Earth to begin resource extraction. Classic empire building, Miller added. They see us as a primitive society they can easily control. Martinez was quiet for a moment. Then she looked at each of her officers. And what did all of you think of their technology? Dawson smiled slightly. Their ships are big and impressive, but their power management is wasteful. They use brute force where we use efficiency. Their weapons are powerful but slow to target, Wright added, and their shields have regular cycling patterns that create predictable weak points. Martinez nodded. So they have exactly the weaknesses Earth Command predicted. She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the massive space station. We were sent here not just for diplomacy, but to assess whether the Confederation would be a threat to Earth. She turned back to her crew. I think we have our answer. The question now is, what do we do about it? Captain Martinez sat alone in her quarters looking at the message on her screen. Earth Command had responded to her report about the Confederation's true intentions. The message was clear. Protect Earth's interests. Use full capabilities if necessary. She took a deep breath and pressed the communication button. All senior officers to the secure conference room. Priority Alpha. 10 minutes later, her team gathered around the table in a small room deep within the USS Horizon. This room had special shielding that blocked any scanning or listening devices. Earth Command has given us new orders, Martinez said. They believe the Confederation poses a real threat to our independence. What exactly are we authorized to do? Miller asked, his face serious. Whatever is necessary to ensure Earth's safety, Martinez replied, including revealing our true capabilities. The officers exchanged glances. They had all been briefed before the mission that their ships carried technology far beyond what they were showing to the aliens. What's our first move, Captain? Chen asked. Engineer Dawson will begin activating our hidden systems. Lieutenant Garcia has detected probes being sent toward Earth's coordinates. We need to stop those first. Garcia nodded. I tracked 3 small vessels leaving the station 6 hours. Ego. They're fast and heading directly toward our home system. Right. Prepare defensive measures, Martinez ordered. Powell, I need you to continue analyzing their shield frequencies. Chen, keep monitoring their communications. Captain, Dawson, spoke up. I've been studying their power systems. They have a weakness we can exploit. Their shields and weapons draw from the same energy source. They can't maintain both at full strength simultaneously. Good work, Martinez said. We'll use that if necessary. She stood up. I'm going to meet with Commander Zix Valor one more time to see if diplomacy can still work. If not, we move to Plan B. An hour later, Martinez stood in Commander Zix Valor's office on the space station. The purple-skinned alien sat behind a large desk, looking down at her with those yellow eyes. Captain Martinez, he said smoothly, have you considered our generous offer of protection for your planet? I have, Martinez replied, and I must decline. Earth wishes to establish equal diplomatic relations, not become a protected territory. The alien's face hardened. That is unfortunate. Perhaps you don't understand your situation. Your small fleet and your single inhabited planet are in no position to negotiate terms. We simply want peaceful relations, Martinez said calmly. Peace comes with a price, Zix Valor said. The Confederation requires access to certain resources on all member worlds, and if we refuse, the alien commander stood up. He was nearly 2 feet taller than Martinez. Then you are not friends of the Confederation, and those who are not friends are problems to be solved. Martinez met his gaze steadily. I understand. When do you expect an answer? You have 6 hours to reconsider, Zix Valor said. After that, we will be forced to take steps to secure the safety of this region of space. Your primitive weapons would be useless against even one of our smaller vessels. When Martinez returned to the horizon, she found the bridge humming with activity. Her officers looked up as she entered. The diplomatic approach didn't work, she announced. They've given us 6 hours before they take action against us. We have a bigger problem, Garcia said. 2 Confederation warships just came out of faster-than-light travel. They're much larger than the escorts we saw earlier. The main screen showed 2 massive ships moving toward the station. Each one was shaped like a crescent moon with glowing points along the curved edge. They made the human vessels look tiny by comparison. Those are Dominator-class battleships, Wright said. From what I've gathered, they're among the most powerful ships in their fleet. Captain, Chen called from her station. I'm picking up a transmission from the station to those ships. They're discussing securing the primitive vessels and making an example of us. Martinez's face showed no fear. Then we've learned all we need to about the Confederation's true nature. She pressed the ship-wide communication button. All hands, this is the captain. Prepare for possible hostile action. This is not a drill. She turned to Dawson. Begin powering up our real systems. Disengage the camouflage fields. The engineer nodded and began entering commands into his console. It will take about 20 minutes to bring everything online without them noticing. Miller, send encrypted orders to the other ships in our fleet. Tell them to prepare all systems but wait for my signal. Powell approached the captain with a data pad. I've completed my analysis of their shield frequencies. There's a cycling pattern that creates a 3-second window of vulnerability every 42 seconds. Send that data to Tactical, Martinez ordered. Right, program our weapons To target during those windows. Already on it, Wright replied. The next hour was tense as the human ships quietly prepared while appearing to be doing nothing unusual. The two massive Confederation warships moved into position on either side of the small human fleet. "They're boxing us in?" Miller observed. Chen suddenly straightened at her station. "Captain, incoming transmission from Commander Zix Valor." "On screen," Martinez ordered. The alien commander appeared, looking smug. "Captain Martinez, I see you've noticed our additional security vessels. I hope their presence helps you understand the wisdom of accepting our protection." "We're still considering your offer, Commander," Martinez replied calmly. "Perhaps this will help you decide faster," Zix Valor said. "Those ships have orders to disable your vessels if you attempt to leave without signing our agreement. For your own safety, of course." "Of course," Martinez said. "We'll have our answer within the hour." When the screen went dark, Martinez turned to her crew. "Status? All systems ready," Dawson reported. "The other ships in our fleet report the same." "They're powering up weapons," Wright warned. "I don't think they're going to wait for our answer." Martinez nodded. "Neither am I. All hands, battle stations. Raise shields." The bridge lights dimmed, slightly as power was redirected to the ship's true systems. "Captain," Garcia called out, "the Confederation ships are moving into attack positions." Martinez sat calmly in her command chair. "Send to all Earth ships, execute defense pattern Delta. Reveal true capabilities." She looked at the approaching alien warships on the screen. "Let's show them what a human fleet can really do." The bridge of the USS Horizon hummed with energy as hidden systems came online. Panels that had seemed plain and simple now glowed with advanced displays. The ship itself seemed to vibrate as its true power awakened. On the main screen, the two massive Confederation warships grew larger as they approached. Bright points of light appeared along their curved edges as weapon systems powered up. "They're charging weapons," Security Chief Wright announced. His station now showed detailed scans of the alien vessels that would have been impossible with the primitive systems the humans had displayed earlier. Captain Martinez nodded calmly. "All ships activate adaptive shielding. Prepare evasive pattern Omega-3. Commander Zix Valor's face appeared on the screen again. His yellow eyes widened slightly when he saw the changed appearance of the Horizon's bridge. "What is this?" the alien demanded. "Some kind of illusion?" "No illusion, Commander," Martinez replied. "Simply the truth we chose not to share until now." "Your deception changes nothing," Zix Valor said with a sneer. "Our ships still outmatch yours by every measure. This is your final warning. Accept our terms or face the consequences." "We decline your terms," Martinez said firmly, "and we suggest you reconsider your hostile actions." The alien commander made a sharp gesture, and the screen went dark. "They've cut transmission," Chen reported. "The warships are moving into firing positions." "All hands brace for impact," Martinez ordered. "Miller, execute evasive pattern now." The 5 human ships suddenly scattered in different directions, moving with a speed and grace that shocked the approaching alien vessels. Instead of the slow, clumsy movements they had shown before, the human ships now darted like fish in water. The lead Confederation warship fired a massive energy beam at the Horizon, but the human vessel simply wasn't there when the beam reached its target. The Horizon had moved faster than the alien targeting systems could track. "Their weapons are powerful but slow," Miller observed from tactical. "They're used to fighting large, sluggish opponents." "Captain," Chen called out, "I'm intercepting their communications. They're confused and demanding explanations from their scanning crews." On the space station, Commander Zix Valor watched in shock as the small human ships effortlessly avoided the powerful weapons of his warships. "How is this possible?" he demanded of his officers. "You said their technology was primitive." "It appeared primitive," one officer replied nervously. "They must have been concealing their true capabilities." Back on the Horizon, Martinez watched as the human fleet executed a perfect formation change that further confused the alien targeting systems. "Right. Are their shields cycling as Dr. Powell predicted?" she asked. Wright nodded. "Yes, Captain. We have a 3-second window every 42 seconds. Target their propulsion systems, Martinez ordered. Disable, don't destroy. The USS Horizon suddenly pivoted and accelerated toward the larger of the two Confederation warships. The alien vessel fired again, but the human ship seemed to shimmer and blur as the beam passed harmlessly through what appeared to be a ghost image. Phase shift drive working perfectly, Dawson reported from engineering with a grin. They're firing at our echo. The real Horizon appeared behind the alien warship. A series of precise energy pulses shot from the human vessel, hitting the exact points where the alien ship's shields were weakest. The massive warship shuddered as systems across its hull went dark. The other human ships executed similar maneuvers, dancing around the second Confederation warship like wolves around a much larger but slower bear. Their coordinated attacks struck, with surgical precision. "This is impossible," Commander SCI-FI shouted as he watched his mighty warships being systematically disabled by vessels a fraction of their size. "These humans can't have this level of technology." On the Horizon's bridge, Chen looked up from her station. "Captain, the second warship is targeting our smallest vessel, the Nova." Martinez nodded to Miller. "Execute protection protocol." The Horizon suddenly appeared between the endangered Nova and the alien warship. A shield of shimmering blue energy expanded from the human ship, absorbing the powerful alien beam without showing any signs of strain. "Return fire," Martinez ordered. "Target their main weapon arrays." The Horizon fired what looked like small, glowing projectiles. They bypassed the alien ship's shields entirely, attaching to the hull near the weapon emplacements. Seconds later, the warship's weapons went offline. In less than 5 minutes, both massive Confederation vessels floated powerless, their engines and weapons disabled by the precise attacks of the human fleet. "All enemy ships neutralized, Captain," Wright reported, with satisfaction. "Minimal damage to their life support and critical systems as ordered." Martinez stood from her chair. "Open a channel to Commander SCI-FI." The alien's face appeared on screen. Gone was the smug superiority. Now his yellow eyes showed shock and confusion. What are you?" he asked, his voice trembling slightly. "We are humans," Martinez replied simply, "a species that has learned never to show all its cards at once." "How did you—" "Those ships are our most powerful." "Size isn't everything, Commander," Martinez cut him off. "Neither is raw power. Precision, efficiency, and strategy matter. More." She took a step closer to the screen. "Now let's discuss new terms for our relationship. First, you will recall the probes you sent toward Earth. How did you know about— Second," Martinez continued, "you will acknowledge Earth and its colonies as sovereign territory, not subject to your protection." The commander seemed to shrink in his chair. "The High Council will never—" "Third," Martinez pressed on, "you will explain to your leaders that if any hostile action is taken against human worlds or ships, what happened today will seem like a friendly greeting compared to our response." The alien was silent for a long moment. "You deceived us," he finally said. "No," Martinez corrected him. "You jumped to conclusions based on appearances. A dangerous mistake in space exploration. We simply allowed you to underestimate us until we learned your true intentions." On the Horizon's bridge, the crew watched as the once arrogant commander struggled to process what had happened. "I will convey your terms to the High Council," SCI-FI said at last. Martinez nodded. "Good. And Commander? You might want to mention that this was only a small exploration fleet. It doesn't represent the full extent of human capabilities." The alien commander's eyes widened even further at this implication. "We'll remain here while you make your report," Martinez said. "I look forward to beginning more honest diplomatic relations." As the screen went dark, Miller turned to the captain. "Do you think they'll believe that this isn't our strongest fleet?" Martinez smiled slightly. "They have no reason not to. After all, they believed we were primitive based on appearances alone. And that," Dr. Powell added, "is why you should never mock a small fleet until you know where it's from." 3 days had passed since the short battle. The human fleet remained in position near the space station, their true capabilities now visible for all to see. The sleek hulls of the ships now glowed with subtle energy patterns that had been hidden before. Weapon systems that had been disguised as simple maintenance ports were now clearly visible. Captain Martinez sat in a large meeting room on the space station. Across from her was not Commander SCI-FI, but a much older alien with pale blue skin that seemed almost translucent. Small lights glowed beneath the skin, pulsing gently like stars. "I am Admiral Tholak," the elder alien said in a deep, resonant voice. "I represent the Council of Elders. I came as soon as I received the report about your demonstration." "Thank you for coming, Admiral," Martinez replied. "I hope we can establish better relations than our first contact suggested." The Admiral's eyes, which looked like swirling galaxies, studied Martinez carefully. In 300 years of Confederation history, no new species has ever hidden their true capabilities from us. It is unprecedented. Miller, sitting beside Martinez, spoke up. "With respect, Admiral, your standard approach to new species gave us little choice." "Explain," Tholak said simply. Martinez nodded. "Earth has observed the Confederation for nearly 15 years. Our long-range probes recorded how you approached and absorbed other developing species. The pattern was clear." The Admiral's eyes widened slightly. "You were watching us before we knew you existed?" "Yes," Martinez said. "We saw how species that appeared weak were treated as resources to be harvested. Those that showed strength were treated with respect. So when we decided to make official contact, we chose to test your intentions by appearing primitive," Tholak concluded. "A clever strategy." Dr. Powell joined the conversation. "We studied your cultural signals and communications. It became clear that the Confederation judges others primarily by their apparent power." The K. Admiral was silent for a moment. "Your assessment is accurate. The Confederation began as a military alliance. That mindset has shaped our approach to expansion. Earth has its own history of powerful nations exploiting weaker ones," Martinez said. "We learned from those mistakes." "Tell me," Tholak said, leaning forward, "if Commander SCI-FI had offered fair and equal terms from the beginning, would you have revealed your true technology level?" "Yes," Martinez answered without hesitation. "We came hoping for honest friendship. The deception was only a precaution." The Admiral nodded slowly. "I understand." He paused, then asked, "The small fleet you brought, is it truly representative of Earth's capabilities?" Martinez smiled slightly. "These 5 ships are our newest Explorer-class vessels, but they represent only a small fraction of Earth's fleet." This wasn't exactly a lie. Earth did have more ships, though not many more advanced than these. "And the technology you displayed?" the Admiral pressed. "The phase shifting, the adaptive shields, the precision targeting systems?" "Standard equipment for our deep space missions," Martinez replied. "We believe in quality over quantity." Frank Dawson, who had joined them for the meeting, added, "Our approach to technology focuses on efficiency rather than raw power. Your ships use 10 times the energy ours do, with less effective results." Admiral Tholak turned to face the engineer. "You studied our systems that closely in such a short time?" Dawson nodded. "It's what engineers do." The Admiral made a sound. That might have been a chuckle. "Indeed." He turned back to Martinez. "Captain, I must apologize for the Confederation's approach to your species. Commander SCI-FI has been reassigned." "No apology needed, Admiral," Martinez said. "Cultural misunderstandings are common in first contact situations. Nevertheless," Tholak continued, "the Council of Elders has authorized me to offer Earth full membership in the Confederation, as equals, not as a protected world." Martinez nodded. "That is an offer we can bring back to Earth's leadership for consideration." "There is more," the Admiral said. "We would like to propose a technology exchange program. Your efficiency designs for some of our range and power advancements. A fair trade benefits everyone," Martinez agreed. As the meeting continued, Lisa Chen entered the room and whispered something to Martinez. The captain nodded and turned back to the Admiral. "Admiral Tholak, I've just received word that Earth has dispatched diplomatic vessels to continue these discussions. They should arrive within 2 weeks. Excellent, the Admiral said. In the meantime, perhaps your engineers could help restore power to our disabled warships? Martinez smiled. Of course, as a show of good faith. Later, back on the USS Horizon, Martinez met with her senior staff in the conference room. Well done, everyone, she said, looking around at her crew. Earth Command is pleased with the outcome. The Confederation now respects us, and we've avoided what could have become a difficult war. Do you think they'll honor the new agreement? Miller asked. Admiral Tholak seems sincere, Powell said. The elder species of the Confederation appear to have a different perspective than the younger, more aggressive ones. Either way, Wright added, they won't be underestimating humans again anytime soon. What happens now, Captain? Chen asked. We'll stay until the diplomatic team arrives, Martinez answered. Then we continue our exploration mission. There's a lot more galaxy to see, and a lot more first contacts to make, Miller said. Let's hope the next ones start better than this one did, Dawson said with a chuckle. Martinez looked out the window at the massive space station. Already she could see changes in how the aliens moved around the human ships, with caution and respect instead of dismissal. One thing is certain, she said. The Confederation has learned an important lesson about judging by appearances. Powell smiled. A lesson as old as human history. Never judge a book by its cover. Or a fleet by its size, Wright added. Far away in a grand chamber on the Confederation's capital world, Admiral Tholak was addressing the Council of Elders. These humans are unlike any species we have encountered, he told the assembled leaders. They think differently. They plan for threats before they materialize. They conceal strengths rather than display them. One of the elders, a massive crystalline being, chimed softly. Are they a danger to us? Only if we make them so, Tholak answered. They seek friendship, but they will not be controlled or exploited. I believe they could become our most valuable allies, or our most dangerous opponents. What do you recommend? Asked another elder. Respect, Tholak said simply. Treat them as equals, learn from them, and perhaps change our approach to other new species as well. The great chamber fell silent as the elders considered his words. And one more thing, the Admiral added. Update the Confederation records. Immediately. Earth and human space should be marked with our highest caution rating. The label should read Approach with Respect. They are far more than they appear to be.